Italy. The city reaches you before you reach it. Stone underfoot is never perfectly even. Sound travels differently here. Voices bouncing off tight streets, the hum of traffic braided with footsteps, a distant bell arriving and disappearing like a memory. The air tastes of roasted coffee and warm bread, but also of old stone warmed by sunlight, the kind of smell that belongs to a place that has been touched for thousands of years. Rome is not quiet, and it doesn't try to be. In Italy, life is naturally public. People speak close, loud, and with their hands, turning even small exchanges into something alive. Rome amplifies that habit. Streets feel like living rooms, doorways feel like conversation points. A simple walk becomes a moving crowd of faces, gestures, and voices, all layered on top of each other. And then, without warning, the city shows you what it really is. The Tiber River. It slides through Rome like a calm spine, older than the modern capital that grew around it. For centuries, it carried goods, soldiers, and pilgrims. It helped feed the city, and it also threatened it, flooding, reshaping banks, forcing Romans to negotiate with water as much as with stone. Even now, when the city roars above, the river keeps its own pace, a reminder that Rome's story began with geography before it became architecture. Rome is built as if time was never asked to leave. Different centuries press against each other so tightly they share the same light. You turn a corner and see laundry on a balcony, scooters parked in a row, and then, right beside it, ancient stone embedded into a wall like a bone under skin. This is the Roman habit that shapes everything. The past isn't separated, it's absorbed. That is why Rome feels different from the rest of Italy. Some cities feel curated, polished into a single era. Rome refuses that. Rome is multiple eras at once, and it doesn't apologize for the chaos that creates. The city can be breathtaking and messy in the same frame. Beauty appears without permission, then vanishes behind noise, then returns again, always nearby, never staged. And the people who live here move through this density as if it's normal, because to them, it is. They don't visit the past, they pass it on the way to work, they meet friends beside it, they argue, laugh, and live with it as a constant background presence. So this is the beginning, not a list, not a lecture, just the first feeling of Roma as it is, right now, around you. From here, we will start meeting the city through the famous places the world recognizes, one by one, each with a story of why it became legendary, who shaped it, how it was made, and what it still means to the people who call this city home. The Colosseum. It doesn't appear gently. It rises in front of you like a broken crown of stone, enormous, pitted, and sunlit. An oval skeleton that still feels heavy with purpose. From the outside, you can read its logic at a glance. Stacked arches, repeating corridors, a design made to swallow crowds and release them again. Even with the missing pieces, it looks less like a ruin and more like a machine that has simply been turned off. It is famous because it became the image the world uses when it thinks of ancient Rome: spectacle, scale, and control compressed into one silhouette. But the reason it still dominates the imagination is simpler. It was built to make power visible, not as an abstract idea, but as a physical experience. You stand here and you feel it. How stone can be used to shape emotion, how architecture can choreograph a crowd. The building we see today began under the Flavian dynasty. Emperor Vespasian started the project, and his son Titus inaugurated it in AD 80 with later expansions under Domitian. It was not built on a random patch of land. The site itself was a statement. It replaced part of Nero's private pleasure grounds, space once reserved for one man, turning it into a public arena meant to belong, at least symbolically, to everyone. And it was created with ruthless practicality. The structure was raised from travertine limestone, tufa, and brick-faced concrete, locked together with iron clamps, engineered into a system of vaults and arches that distributed weight with calm efficiency. Inside, the seating was arranged as a strict map of society, rank set into stone, the richest and most powerful closest to the action, everyone else climbing upward into higher rows, the city's hierarchy made visible from every angle. Beneath the arena floor, another world existed, the hypogeum, a hidden network of tunnels, cages, ramps, and lifts. Animals and fighters were staged below like pieces in a theater, then delivered upward through trapdoors at the exact moment the crowd demanded surprise. It was not only a place of combat, it was a carefully controlled production, timed, managed, and repeated. For people who live here, the Colosseum is more than a postcard. It is a permanent presence, a reminder of what the city once was and what it has survived. It carries pride, yes, but also a kind of weight. It represents genius and brutality in the same breath. Even now, surrounded by traffic and tourists, it refuses to become ordinary. It stands as the city's most recognizable face, and also as a warning. Greatness can be built in stone, but it always leaves shadows behind. The Roman Forum. It doesn't announce itself with height or spectacle. It opens, instead, low and scattered, a wide basin of broken columns, collapsed roofs, and exposed foundations. The ground feels softer here, not in texture, but in meaning. This is where the city once spoke to itself. Power didn't roar. It argued, negotiated, and declared. The Forum became famous not because it was monumental, but because it was essential. This was the center of civic life for ancient Rome, the place where laws were debated, verdicts delivered, triumphs celebrated, and reputations destroyed. Every major decision that shaped the empire passed through this space in one form or another. Standing here, you're not looking at a single building, you're looking at a system. No single person created it. The Forum formed over centuries, layer by layer, as different leaders added what their time demanded. Temples rose beside basilicas, arches cut through older pathways. What began as a marshy valley between hills was drained, leveled, and slowly filled with stone, intention, and authority. Each generation built on top of the last, rarely erasing, almost always adding. Construction here followed function. Basilicas were designed as vast covered halls for legal proceedings and commerce. Temples anchored religious life, tying divine approval to political action. Open spaces allowed crowds to gather, to listen, to react. Stone was shaped not for beauty alone, but for endurance and clarity. The architecture made sure voices carried, processions flowed, and hierarchy was visible without being explained. What makes this place powerful is its fragmentation. Nothing stands whole anymore. Columns are cut short, walls stop mid-thought. And yet, the layout is still readable. You can trace the main routes. You can see where crowds once stood. You can imagine the noise, not as chaos, but as organized intensity. The Forum feels less like a ruin and more like a blueprint left behind. For the people who live around it today, this ground carries a different kind of weight. It isn't a symbol to be simplified. It's a reminder that the city was once governed not from palaces alone, but from shared space. This was where ambition collided with rhetoric, where careers rose and fell in public view. It represents the idea that Rome was built as much by words as by stone. Now traffic hums nearby. Modern buildings press close, yet the Forum remains open, exposed, unapologetically incomplete. It doesn't try to recreate itself. It lets the gaps speak. In doing so, it becomes one of the clearest places to understand what this city truly is. Not a single moment preserved, but a long process frozen mid-conversation. The Pantheon. It appears almost too calm for what it is. From the outside, it can feel understated. An ancient front of columns, a heavy triangular pediment, a doorway that looks like it belongs to a temple that should be empty. But the moment you pass the threshold, the space changes your sense of scale. The air cools, sound thickens, and above you, the ceiling opens into a single, perfect geometry. The Pantheon is famous because it is one of the most astonishing survivals of the ancient world. Still standing, still intact in its essential form, and still functioning as a building you can enter freely. Its dome remains the largest unreinforced concrete dome ever built, a fact that feels less like trivia and more like disbelief when you stand directly beneath it. This is not just a relic, it is a working miracle of engineering. The story begins earlier with Marcus Agrippa, who built a temple on this site during the reign of Augustus. That original structure was damaged and lost. What you see now is the rebuilding associated with Emperor Hadrian in the early 2nd century AD. Hadrian didn't place his own name on the front. The inscription still credits Agrippa, an intentional gesture that turns the building into a bridge between eras, not a personal trophy. Its creation was a controlled experiment in material and weight. The walls are massively thick, designed to carry the dome like a fortress carries a mountain. The Romans poured concrete in layers, changing the mixture as it rose. Heavier aggregates low, lighter materials higher, so the dome becomes lighter as it climbs. They carved coffers into the ceiling not just for beauty, but to reduce mass. And at the center is the oculus, a circular opening that removes weight at the most critical point and replaces it with light. That light is the building's most dramatic feature. It doesn't shine like modern lighting, it moves, it drifts. It falls like a spotlight through dust and air, rotating across the interior as the day advances. When it rains, water drops through the opening and strikes the floor, and the room simply accepts it. Drains built into the marble still doing their silent job. The Pantheon doesn't fight the elements, it incorporates them. For the people of this city, the Pantheon carries a rare kind of meaning: continuity. Empires collapsed, governments changed, streets reinvented themselves, and yet this interior remained. It became a church, and that transformation helped preserve it, but the deeper impact is simpler. This is proof that something can survive, not as a ruin, but as a living space. It is a reminder that the city's past is not only visible, it is usable. You step back outside and the noise returns instantly, but your sense of time doesn't reset. The Pantheon leaves a clean, almost unsettling impression that perfection can exist in stone and that it can outlast the world that first imagined it. Trevi Fountain. You hear it before you see it. The sound is bright and constant, water striking stone in a steady rhythm. Then the street opens, and the fountain appears like a staged reveal. Not gentle, not small. It fills the space with motion, white marble figures, curling waves, and a wall that seems to turn into a theater set. In the tight streets of the city, this sudden openness feels almost impossible, like you stepped into a room that was hidden behind ordinary doors. It is famous because it became the world's image of Rome as romance and ritual. Crowds pressed shoulder to shoulder, cameras raised, coins flashing in the air. But its fame isn't only modern. It was designed to be unforgettable. It sits at the end of an ancient water story, a celebration of control over something essential: fresh water. Trevi is built where three roads meet, hence the name Trevi, from three roads. But its deeper origin is the aqueduct. The water here is linked to the Aqua Virgo, a Roman aqueduct completed in 19 BC under Agrippa, bringing clean water into the city. For centuries, fountains marked where that lifeline arrived. What you see now is the grand Baroque statement built much later, turning a practical endpoint into a public spectacle. The fountain's creation belongs to the 18th century. Pope Clement XII launched a competition, and architect Nicola Salvi produced the winning design. Construction began in 1732 and continued long after Salvi's death, completed in 1762 by Giuseppe Panini. It was not carved as one object, it was assembled as architecture and sculpture fused together, integrated into the facade of the Palazzo Poli, as if the building itself had dissolved into water and stone. Its central figure is Oceanus, commanding the scene, pulled by horses that seem to shift mood, one calm, one restless, guided by tritons. Around him are symbols of abundance and health, a visual argument that water is life and that power is the ability to provide it. The stonework is theatrical, but the message is simple. The city survives because water arrives. And then there is the ritual that made Trevi a modern myth: the coin toss, a small arc of metal over the shoulder, a wish sent into moving water. It's famous enough to feel eternal, yet it's relatively recent in its global popularity, amplified by cinema and repetition. Still, standing here, you understand why it persists. This fountain invites participation. It doesn't just ask to be seen, it asks to be answered. For people who live here, Trevi carries a strange Duinal identity. It is pride, one of the city's most powerful images, carved with the confidence of Baroque Rome. But it is also pressure, a place where daily life collides with endless attention. Even so, the fountain remains what it was built to be: a public stage where water, stone, and desire meet in the open, night after night, century after century. Piazza Navona. The space stretches long and smooth, like a corridor turned into a stage. You feel it before you define it, an oval openness in the middle of dense streets, framed by warm facades and rows of windows watching from above. The sound here is different, not trapped and bouncing like in narrow lanes, but spreading outward, mixing footsteps with voices, street music, the splash of water, and the soft scrape of chairs moving across stone. It is famous because it looks like Rome performing itself: Baroque fountains, dramatic lines, and a public square that never stops being used. But its shape is older than its beauty suggests. This piazza sits directly on the footprint of the Stadium of Domitian, built in the 1st century AD for athletic contests. Over time, the stadium's structure became a container for the city. The stands turned into buildings, the arena became a square, and the ancient curve remained, quietly dictating the space even after the original purpose disappeared. The transformation into today's celebrated piazza peaked in the 17th century, when powerful families wanted this area to become a masterpiece. The Pamphili family, with Pope Innocent X at its center, drove the redesign that gave the square its Baroque identity. Their presence is stamped into the scene through Sant'Agnese in Agone, the church facing the square associated with Francesco Borromini and Girolamo Rinaldi, and through the palace that still dominates one side. But the piazza's true signature is its fountains, and none is more famous than Bernini's. In 1651, Gian Lorenzo Bernini completed the Fountain of the Four Rivers, a theatrical composition of stone and water built around an ancient Egyptian obelisk. Four colossal river gods represent the great waterways of the known continents: the Nile, the Danube, the Ganges, and the Rio de la Plata. The figures twist and brace as if the obelisk's weight is alive above them, turning the fountain into a frozen moment of tension. It is not calm decoration, it is controlled drama. The construction is an engineering performance as much as an artistic one. Heavy stone carved into flowing motion, water directed to animate the sculpture, and a vertical axis, the obelisk, used to pull the eye upward, making the square feel larger than it is. Bernini didn't merely place a fountain in an open space, he made the open space revolve around it. What this square means in the city is not only beauty, but continuity of use. It has always been a public container. A stadium became a piazza became a daily stage. Even now, it holds the same essential function, a place where the city gathers, where movement slows just enough for the surroundings to register, where stone architecture feels less like museum material and more like active scenery. Piazza Navona is famous because it doesn't feel preserved, it feels inhabited, an old shape still doing its job. Vatican City. It feels like the air changes as you cross into it. The space opens, the lines straighten, and suddenly the city is arranged around a single point of gravity. Stone spreads wide beneath your feet, and the facade ahead doesn't just stand, it holds the horizon. Everything here is built to direct your eyes forward, then upward, until scale becomes the main sensation. It's famous because it is the smallest state on Earth with one of the largest cultural footprints. Spiritual authority, art, architecture, and ceremony compressed into a few streets, but the magnet at the center is unmistakable. St. Peter's Basilica. The building is legendary because it sits on the traditional site of St. Peter's burial, turning faith into geography. The basilica you see now is not ancient Rome. It is the Renaissance and Baroque answering Rome with a different kind of power. Not conquest, but permanence through belief. Its creation took more than a century and passed through some of the most famous hands in Western art. Pope Julius II began the rebuilding in the early 1500s, and Donato Bramante set the first grand vision. After him came Raphael, then Antonio da Sangallo the Younger, each reshaping plans as ambition grew. Michelangelo later took control and reimagined the structure with muscular clarity, designing the massive dome that would become the basilica's signature silhouette. After Michelangelo, Giacomo della Porta and Domenico Fontana completed the dome, and Carlo Maderno extended the nave and created the long facade that now faces the square. This wasn't built like a single monument. It was built like an evolving argument, each architect adding force, changing direction, correcting, expanding. The engineering is felt in the weight of the piers, the way the interior holds the dome like a mountain held in balance. Inside, marble and light don't decorate, they dominate. The space is calibrated to make the human body feel small, then protected, then overwhelmed. And outside, the approach is its own architecture. St. Peter's Square. Gian Lorenzo Bernini designed the colonnade in the 1600s, shaping the square like open arms. Rows of columns create a rhythm of shadow and brightness, guiding movement while hiding it, an optical choreography where crowds can gather without breaking the symmetry. The square is famous because it turns arrival into theater. The walk, the reveal, the sense of being held in a grand public embrace. Here, what this place means is not explained by slogans, it's felt in how the space is used. Pilgrims arrive with silence in their posture. Visitors arrive with cameras. Ceremonies transform the square into a living ritual. And at the same time, the surroundings carry an unavoidable reality. This is a world center of art and faith, but also a machine of preservation, authority, and history. Vatican City remains famous because it is built from a rare combination: belief made visible in stone, and human genius used to give that belief a shape that can survive centuries. When you step back toward the surrounding streets, the noise returns, but the afterimage stays. Columns, dome, and the feeling of scale pressing gently against your chest. Trastevere. The streets tighten, then twist. Light breaks into fragments between buildings, landing in patches on cobblestone and peeling plaster. The sound changes too, less monumental, more intimate. Plates clink somewhere behind a doorway. A small burst of laughter escapes a window. You move through corridors of ochre walls and ivy, and the neighborhood feels like it's breathing at street level, not performing for a skyline. It's famous because it offers a different Rome, smaller, older in texture, and stubbornly human in scale. The name comes from Latin trans Tiberem, across the Tiber, and that geography matters. For a long time, this side of the river sat slightly apart from the political center. It became a place for outsiders, sailors, traders, craftsmen, immigrants. Over centuries, that mix formed a reputation, less formal, more lived in, a district where daily life felt closer to the surface. Its creation wasn't a single architect's project. It formed the way neighborhoods form when time is allowed to work without being erased. Medieval streets followed old paths. Buildings expanded by necessity rather than design, growing upward and inward. Stone was reused, walls patched, corners reinforced. The result is a layout that feels organic, rarely straight, rarely symmetrical, always textured. Even the way sound travels here proves it. You hear footsteps before you see them, a voice turning a corner before the person appears. But Trastevere also has symbols that anchor it, and they give the neighborhood its quiet authority. Basilica of Santa Maria in Trastevere. It's famous because it holds one of the oldest Christian identities in the city. Tradition places an early church here, and the current basilica was shaped through centuries, with a major rebuilding in the 12th century under Pope Innocent II. Its facade glows in warm tones, crowned with mosaics that catch the last light of day, turning the square into a small, luminous room. Inside, mosaics shimmer with gold, an older kind of brightness that doesn't feel decorative so much as enduring. The basilica was made the way many Roman structures were made: rebuilt, expanded, corrected, then preserved. Columns were reused, materials were gathered from earlier ruins. Art was added as layers, not as a single finish. The building becomes a record of continuity, each century leaving a fingerprint without erasing the previous one. Trastevere's deeper meaning, though, is in what it represents inside the city. An alternate heartbeat. It is where the idea of local survives under the weight of fame. The neighborhood is celebrated, photographed, and crowded, but its identity is still tied to everyday geometry: a laundry line above an alley, a small fountain in a square, a doorway worn smooth from repeated use. At night, the district becomes a moving lantern. The streetlights soften the stone. The voices rise, the squares fill, and the old lanes funnel people like rivers. Yet the core sensation stays the same. This is a place built not for grandeur, but for closeness. Trastevere is famous because it compresses the city into a walkable intimacy. History not as a monument, but as a texture you pass with your shoulder almost brushing the wall. Rome at night. The city doesn't shut down, it changes temperature. The air cools, the stone holds the day's heat a little longer, and the streets begin to shine where lamps catch worn surfaces. The noise shifts too. Daytime traffic thins into a steadier hum, and the sound of footsteps becomes clearer, sharper, almost musical on cobblestone. You start noticing how light behaves here, warm, low, and angled, turning corners into silhouettes and facades into stages. Some places become entirely different at night, not because they transform, but because the crowd's attention transforms them. Trevi Fountain. The water keeps the same rhythm, but the scene feels tighter, more dramatic. Marble looks whiter under artificial light, shadows deepen in the folds of sculpture, and the whole composition reads like a film set that never ends. Even when it's crowded, the fountain's sound pushes through, constant, insistent, making the square feel like it belongs to water more than to people. At night, the ritual becomes quieter in the body, even if the space is loud. A pause at the edge, a glance upward, the sense that this is one of those images the world carries for a reason. Then the city offers a different kind of night, less theatrical, more lived in, but still unmistakably Roman. Campo de' Fiori. By day, it's a market square. At night, it becomes a basin of voices. Tables fill the space, glasses catch the light, and the surrounding streets funnel movement inward. The square's fame comes from its double life, commerce in the morning, social gravity after dark. And above it all stands the dark figure of Giordano Bruno, reminding you the city never fully separates pleasure from history. Even here, nightlife happens on ground that remembers. And sometimes the night is not about crowds at all. Sometimes it's about the city revealing its bones. The Spanish Steps. Stone becomes softer under evening light, and the staircase looks less like a tourist landmark and more like an architectural slope designed for lingering. The steps are famous because they turn elevation into theater, people arranged naturally like an audience, the city framed above and below. At night, the movement slows, the square feels calmer. The surrounding facades hold their symmetry like a held breath, and the steps become a place where the city's elegance is easiest to see. What makes the night here powerful is how often the past slips into the present without introduction. A corner turns into a church facade, a narrow street opens into a piazza, a ruin appears behind a modern storefront. The city doesn't present these as separate chapters, it layers them in the same frame, under the same lamps, as if time is simply another texture. Night is when that layering feels most honest. The distractions fade, the light simplifies, details become outlines, outlines become shapes, and the whole city reads as a continuous surface of stone, water, and shadow. It becomes clear why this place has always been photographed, painted, described, because it knows how to hold attention without asking for it. And when you keep walking past midnight, the city doesn't disappear. It quiets into a slower pulse. Lamps remain, water keeps moving, stone keeps holding heat. The night doesn't end here, it thins, gradually, until the first hint of morning returns and the city begins again, exactly where it left off. Rome. It stays with you as a texture more than a timeline, not a list of places, but a sequence of sensations. Stone that holds heat, water that never stops moving, streets that narrow and open like breath. Even after you leave a famous square, the city keeps leaking into the ordinary. An ancient column embedded into a wall, a fragment of marble used like it's just another building material, a shadow line that looks engineered by time itself. This is why the city is more than tourism. It isn't experienced only when you arrive at a landmark, it's experienced in the spaces between them, the way one era refuses to fully disappear, the way the present keeps walking on top of the past without ever sealing it shut. The city doesn't separate its centuries into museums, it stacks them, exposes them, and keeps using them. What it means to be from here is shaped by that constant proximity. The past isn't an abstract pride, it's a physical neighbor. It is always visible, always near, sometimes inconvenient, sometimes magnificent. Streets can't be widened easily. Underground work becomes archaeology. Renovation turns into negotiation with history. In this city, even fixing a pipe can become an encounter with something older than the modern world. And yet, the memory people carry isn't only about grandeur, it's also about familiarity. The city's most famous silhouettes, domes, arches, fountains, become part of the daily background. They stop being wow and become there. That kind of closeness creates a particular relationship, affection mixed with fatigue, pride mixed with impatience, beauty mixed with the mess of real life. The city doesn't ask its residents to admire it every day, it asks them to live inside it. That's why this place holds a reputation for permanence. Empires ended, borders changed, governments rose and fell. The city remained, not untouched, but continuous. It absorbs change the way stone absorbs weather, slowly, visibly, without losing its identity. It can be chaotic, overcrowded, loud, but it is rarely anonymous. Even the noise feels specific, tied to certain streets, certain squares, certain echoes. When you think back on the journey, the famous sites become anchors. Colosseum's broken crown, the Forum's open blueprint, the Pantheon's circular light, the fountain's rushing stage, the Vatican's vertical scale, Tristevere's tight lanes, the night's warm lamps. But the deeper impression is the city itself, how it refuses to be reduced. This is the ending, and it isn't a conclusion so much as a last image, the feeling of walking away while the city continues. Water keeps flowing, stone keeps holding heat, light keeps sliding across facades. The city remains in motion, layered and unchanged in its essential character, waiting, not for you specifically, but for the next set of footsteps to enter its frame.